The dream you reflected on after our last section was probably something that you chose to do, like buying a new house or having a baby, getting fit, or even possibly starting a new job. And all of those things, at least initially, we perceive them to be positive. And in fact, the way that we perceive a challenge or a change in our lives impacts the way that we process that challenge or change emotionally. So, for example, if we perceive something to be positive, then we'll process it in one way. If we perceive a challenge or a change in our lives to be negative, we'll process it in a different manner. And some very smart people have taken the time to figure out that the way that humans process change and challenge in life is quite predictable. You may have heard of the 5 stages of grief. That's the manner in which we typically process negatively perceived challenges and changes in life. And those 5 stages go something like this: denial, followed by anger, followed by bargaining, followed by depression, which is then followed by acceptance. And that's a fairly predictable response to a negative challenge or change in our lives. Now, what about positively perceived changes? How do we respond to that? Well, we're going to find it's quite surprising how we respond to something like, having a child. We've chosen to do this, or getting married, we've chosen to do this, and then somehow our emotional response is different than we're expecting. So now let's take a moment and let's walk through our emotional response to a positively perceived change in our life. For our example, let's use starting a new job. Most of us have started a new job. We know what that feels like. And, the excitement of starting a new job is our dream job. We've done all this work and preparation. We've been through the interviews. We got accepted. They're going to pay us. So we're really ready to get started. Our optimism is off the charts. Now, we need to kind of use some language here so that we know what we're talking about. We'll call this first stage we'll call it the change curve, uninformed optimism. Now, you may wonder why I'm choosing to use that language. You're saying, I'm not uninformed. I've researched the company, I've researched the job, I've been through the interviews, I've asked tons of questions. What I mean when I say uninformed is we are emotionally uninformed about this job. We really haven't experienced it yet. We have information, we have knowledge, but we don't have emotional experience. So this is uninformed optimism. Then we show up to the new job and we start working. Now we start experiencing the job emotionally, day after day after day. And there are some things that are probably quite positive that we're enjoying about our new job, but at the same time, we're experiencing some feelings that we weren't anticipating. For example, maybe our boss isn't as attentive and as helpful as we thought she was going to be. Possibly, there's a coworker or two that seems to ignore you, doesn't seem to like you. And of course, then there's this pesky job that I don't really know what I'm doing, and I don't want anybody to know that while I'm trying to figure it out. And what happens during this phase is that we start to have feelings of doubt. Did I make the right choice? Is this the right place for me? Am I going to be able to make it here and to be successful? And we start progressing into the next phase, which is informed pessimism. In other words, now we're emotionally informed, and we start to have these feelings of doubt that start to set in. And after a while, after those feelings of doubt accumulate and accumulate and accumulate, we wake up one day and we just feel stuck. And if you've been there before, you know what I'm talking about. You can't get rid of this feeling. You're up at night, you can't sleep. All you can think about is your job, or a coworker, or your boss, or a project that you're not doing well on. And you just feel stuck, and you feel like the only way I can get out of this is to leave. I can't really see a way out. I just feel stuck. And This doesn't happen just with jobs. This can happen in a relationship. It can happen in marriage. It can certainly happen when we have a new child in our lives, when we've been up for 4, 5, 6 consecutive nights with no sleep, and we just feel stuck. And that's not a good place to be. But here's what we know, as you've been through major challenges and changes in life before, that eventually you get unstuck because you have these little glimpses of hope that kind of make their way into your life, and each one of those feelings of doubt starts to get replaced with a feeling of hope. And we enter the next phase, which is hopeful realism. Now let's stop for a moment. Let's go back to informed pessimism and why this is such a tricky problem for us. It's because when we chose this challenge, we chose this major change in our life, we chose this job, we chose this person, we chose this relationship, we chose to move, we chose to buy the new house. And now all of a sudden we have all these negative feelings, and it's very confusing. It's a very confusing place to be. And so I just want you to remember that as we kind of walk through this. Now, the other point I want to make is that this is not negotiable. It is without a doubt that every time you go through a major challenge or change, you're going to experience this. You can't opt out of it. You're going to go through this emotional response to this change or this major challenge, even if it's positively perceived by yourself. Okay, back to the curve. So now we've got these glimpses of hope. We're starting to see that, oh, I'm going to get through this. We also have a realistic view of things as well. We know it's still going to be hard, but we're going to make it. And then eventually we start to build confidence, right? We start to understand our job. Maybe we've had some success with some small projects. Maybe we got an attaboy from the boss. Maybe that coworker who seemed to be ignoring us invited us out to lunch or to come over and see a ball game on the weekend. So we start to get to a point where we start to develop confidence, and we enter the last phase, which is informed optimism. So now as you kind of think about this curve, you look at it and you say, you know what? Okay, you've told me I can't opt out of it. I've got to go through it. But does the level of pessimism need to be so high? Does it have to take so long to get through this? And that's a great question. And the answer is no. Your level of pessimism could be less, certainly, and it can take less time to get through it. As a matter of fact, just by living life and experiencing life, you've probably been through this curve several times. You're probably thinking about the times you've been through it before, the times you've been stuck, and you've made it through. And you've probably learned some things that have helped you to reduce your levels of pessimism and to take less time. Well, by now, you probably figured out the secret to getting through these challenges quicker and with less pessimism is personal resilience. The benefit to you is that these challenges and these changes in life will take less of a toll on you emotionally and otherwise, and it'll take less of a toll on all the people in your life who orbit around you. Well, we've introduced the change curve today, which is a really important part of understanding our emotional response to a positively perceived change in our lives, and how quite surprising our own response can be to the challenges and changes that we have chosen for ourselves, or at least the ones that we perceive to be positive. Next, what we're going to do over a series of the next videos is we're going to explain personal resilience. We're going to break it down so that you can understand it and how you can apply it in your own life. Next, what I'd like you to do is we have a set of questions that follow this video. I'd like you to take a little time, reflect on those questions in preparation for our next time together. Until then, thank you. See you next time.